Hello, it's so good to see you again. I'm Barbara and together with my husband Daniel I restored the historic sailing ship Flying Coney. Right now we are on a journey from the Netherlands to Germany. This time, however, we take a break from traveling and get some work done on Flying Coney.
So we get a lot of comments and questions regarding the name. What is a coney? What does the name mean? Is it a name that we came up with, or was it always the name of the ship? And well, when we bought the boat, we didn't like the previous name, so we thought we need a new one. And we came up with many ideas. And today I want to share these ideas with you and want to explain what the name means. So we wanted to have a name that sounds a little bit historic and that is a reference to the famous clipper ships, because I think with the elegant line that our boat has, she does look a little bit like a clipper ship, and also originally she was built with a wooden hull with a steel structure. That's also how the clipper ships were built, so I think that's very much appropriate. And I had a look at the list of all the old clipper ships, and there was something that a few of them shared, and that was the flying. The flying fish, the flying cloud, the flying spur. So a lot of flying clipper ships and also some other historic naval ships or mystical ships like the Flying Dutchman or the Flying Greyhound. So I think Flying Coney sounds very historic and it sounds like an old ship. And also the flying is a reference to our past in a foiling or flying racing catamaran class, the Olympic Necklace 17. That's what we did before we bought the ship, so I think it has a connection with us, which is also nice. And the second word, the coney, first of all, it's a good talking point because not many people know what a coney is. Well, it's just another word for bunny rabbit. And we always had bunnies in our past. Also, when we moved aboard, we still had our cute little fellas and we love these little animals. So we thought it's a good idea to put a bunny somehow in the name of the ship. But we figured out that you never say rabbit on a boat. Just did, but well, I'm not superstitious, so I don't think it's a problem. So, but still, flying rabbit was out of the question. Flying hare sounds like flying hare. So coney is the older word for bunny, and it also has this historic feel to the name. So that's how we came up with Flying Coney. Another reference to the coney is that the ship was formerly rebuilt into a North Sea fishing trawler at a shipyard called De Haas, which also means the rabbit in Dutch. And also one reason why the word coney is no longer in use is that it sounds similar to something else. So it does have kind of a bawdy meaning as well, which is very much appropriate for a ship if you ask me. So one thing that really bothers us is the name or how the name is written on the hull. We legally need the name on the bow. So what we did a long while ago is we simply put black tape here so that it's readable that this boat is the Flying Coney. But we've planned for a very long time to exchange it with a properly plotted name with golden letters. But the problem is that directly above there is the cap rail and the connection between the cap rail and the bulwark, and it's rusting. So if we put on a nice looking name, after a short while all the rust would run down and it would ruin the name. So we lived with the taped one. So now is finally the time to get rid of the rust, put on some primer, and hopefully in a not too long future we put on the new plotted name, and we also will paint the bulwark blue. So a lot to do. So we just had a visit by the authorities who told us we're not allowed to grind here, and it's not that they came by just as. No, there was one guy was going by with his car, and apparently he had called them. So yeah, all the carvers are complaining that the ship is rusty, and we try to get rid of it, and it's simply not possible because everywhere where we go, it's not possible to grind steel. So eventually it will end in the water anyway. Really annoying. Really, really annoying. So Flying Coney is not the first name the ship had, and almost every previous owner changed the name of the boat. Unfortunately, we do not know the original name when she was a warship. It was probably just a number, but when she was officially rebuilt with a steel hull, her first name was Tiny, which is pretty hilarious considering she's the biggest boat on YouTube. And maybe if we knew this name when we bought the ship, maybe we would have named her back to Tiny. But then she went through many different names: Landert, Katharina, Eckhart, and when she was a sailing ship, she was named Ran, which was also out of the question because there is another YouTube channel sailing a ship named Ran, or a boat named Ran. And the last name before we bought her was Sally, after the Sally Lightfoot crab. And I didn't want it to have a name that references to a crab, so we thought it's a good idea to change the name towards something that has a connection with us. Yesterday we got a warning that we're no longer allowed to grind in this harbor, so we stopped. Of course we stopped, but today we do need to get some zinc primer on the spots we grinded, and I used this opportunity to also got another coat of primer on the loading mast. In the shipyard we coated it with a 2-component primer, and on top of that we put our zinc primer, and on top of that finally the paint. Mixing up the paint because all the zinc, the heavy particles, collected at the bottom of the can, so we need to mix it up to have a uniform paint. Gray on gray, so the optical difference is not that big, but it still has a purpose of connecting the 2-component primer with our paint.
And which color will it be in the end?
I'm thinking about gray. I guess superstructures on this boat are white. It will stay white, so I guess we paint it white. I always enjoy things that make the boat better. So in this case, if the coating is good, that means it's not rusting for a very long time. One item less to worry. So that's the nice thing about painting and coating, and it makes a huge difference. So each and every rust stain on the boat does look horrible, even in areas where it does not really matter, because we will remove quite a lot. For example, this whole superstructure will be removed at one spot, but there's rust on top of it, so the whole boat does look a little bit worse. So since we decided to change the name, and since we are legally required to have a name on the bow, we needed to come up with a quick solution in order to be able to move the boat. So we used a special fond called tape sans. So yes, this is indeed just simple black tape that we used to quickly apply a name to the bow. And it was always meant to be just temporary. But there are a few problems connected with changing the provisional tape name towards something nicely painted or nicely printed. So in most harbors, we're simply not allowed to derust the boat. And the connection in between the bulwark and the cap rail is notorious for being a little bit rusty. And we do have to treat it, otherwise the rust from this spot would run down over the name. And also we do want to have the bulwark painted blue. So we need to do that first, and since we're not allowed to grind in the harbors, there was simply no good option to tackle this project. That's the first thing. Of course we could do it in the shipyard, then it's no problem to derust the boat. But it's simply too high up from the ground, so we couldn't reach the bulwark in the shipyard. And that was kind of the main problem. Since about 2 years we do have a nicely plotted name in golden letters, and we can't wait to put it on the bow. But there was simply no good option to get rid of the rust and to apply it. And also, we're pretty much still a project boat, and there are simply more urgent projects that need our time and our efforts. And I do think a nice name on the bow is kind of the cherry on top of the cake, and not a necessity. So it's working. We do have the name, but I do have to agree, if we do change the name towards something nicer, it would drastically improve the look of the boat, and it would look much less like a project boat and much more like a proper ship. Once we're done with all the welding, of course we will somehow blast the hull. Currently, I do think we're using a laser derusting. It is cool, yeah, but it's not very common in the shipyard industry. But they're always a little bit stuck in the 70s if you have a modern shipyard, or stuck in the 50s if you're an orc. No, the latter great. How you normally do it with a steel boat is you have a new steel boat or a newly blasted steel boat, and then you put on a 2-component paint that lasts about 15 to 20 years. Then you try to touch it up with 2-component paint, and at one point rust start to get through. That's the point where we're now, and you can prolong the intervals to the next blasting a little bit with using 1-component paint. It's working fine, and this way you can prolong it for 10 years or so, and then it's time to blast the boat again. So every 25 to 30 years you do need to sandblast a boat, usually. I'm quite happy, really, honestly, with each and every rust spot disappearing from the boat, from the outside of the boat. I feel a lot better, because I see a very beautiful ship with a little bit of rust. She is an old lady, and she has a few spots that need a little bit of makeup. But in this case, it's not makeup, it's even better. It's new paint, it's new coating. It lasts for many years until there is a completely new 2-component paint on it.
And that's all we have time for today. We really hope we get the chance to paint Flying Coney's bulwark quite soon. It's getting rustier each and every day. But until then, we all have to live with it. And all this, the restoration, the videos and our journey wouldn't be possible without the generosity of our lovely supporters. So a huge thanks to all of you. And if you want to support our project as well, then feel free to check out our Patreon. We offer real-time updates, regular meetings and additional videos to our crew. And you can even try it out for free and see if it's a good fit for you. Next time we will take you on the last leg of our voyage, where we will finally cross the border into Germany. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.